The Canine and Feline Behaviour Association employs Britain's top seminar experts for your professional development. Seminars are exciting and stimulate new and modern ideas from Britain's top experts.
Thanks very much. Morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me. My name's Simon Harding. I'm a senior lecturer at Middlesex University, and I'm going to talk to you about my book and my research into status dogs and weapon dogs. And the title, of course, is Unleashed, the Phenomenon of Status Dogs and Weapon Dogs. I've got a number of copies of the book that I brought up with me, and I'm ever so keen not to drag them back to London. How's that for a sales pitch? Very kind of under the radar there. Now on Amazon, and I don't know why, but they are 70 quid. Here today they're 20. So if anybody would like to relieve me of them, I'd be thrilled to bits. So thanks very much. But if not, along the side there, I've placed some of these flyers. And so if you don't have funds with you, you can use one of these, fill out the back, and you'll still get it for 20 quid. So, right, well, now the next thing to say is I want to be very clear. I'm not a doggy person. I'm not from the dog world. I'm a sociologist and a criminologist. And so what I'll be doing now is taking you into a bit of a different world. But it's a world that you'll recognize, and it's a world that you'll have seen, because these kind of dogs and the individuals that own these types of dogs are very familiar to us. In fact, in every park, in every high street, you know, in the country. So you will, I think, recognize some of that. So I do unfortunately have a couple of rather unpleasant slides, and we'll try not to dwell on those too much. But and there's a couple of images of dogs that have been injured and destroyed. So, but I'll try not to dwell on that. But as a lecturer, I'm immensely gratified by the fact that Colin can put up a slide and the entire audience goes, "Ah, I have never been able to master that, Colin, so my hat's off to you." If my students could only appreciate that, but right, okay, so here we go. Do I point this anywhere in particular? I point it there, to you. Right, okay, so here we are. We're in Blackburn in the north of England, and this is just a couple of years ago in March. And if you'd been happening through the suburbs of that town on that day, this is the situation that you would find. Now, for me as a criminologist, I find this kind of image absolutely extraordinary in the UK. But when you know that this is to do with dogs in somebody's backyard and not a stakeout for some international terrorist, then this image becomes really quite shocking and quite staggering. So I was very surprised to see this particular picture to do with this particular issue. The police have arrived in force, and of course what's happened is this. A 19-year-old boy has been attacked by two bull mastiffs. The police have been called. Two armed officers found the victim being savaged by dogs. So when the police came, the dogs were shot with tasers, and that didn't have much effect. So they then got into a kind of siege environment with these animals, and they had to bring in a total of 30 officers, some of them in riot gear. The dogs were eventually tranquilized and then later taken away and euthanized. And this poor chap was quite badly injured and suffered life-changing injuries, requiring major surgery. But the whole operation cost you, as the taxpayer, £30,000. And it took the police 30 hours. Now, you know, in the days of police cuts and cuts for everything, I mean, it's, again, for me, it's extraordinary that we're now in a situation where this kind of event, still rare, but now does happen. And of course, when I was growing up with dogs, and I had a dog of my own until I was about 15, this kind of scenario would be unthinkable and unheard of. But it's no longer unthinkable or unheard of in the UK. And I would say in the United States and a number of other countries around the world, it's becoming quite a common feature. And then, of course, we've got the tragic story of Jade Anderson, beautiful young girl, aged 14, met a horrible and very distressing end. And that was in March 2013. Within 24 hours of that event, there was a similar event in Auckland in New Zealand, where a 31-year-old woman was savaged to death. And again, the same day in Maryland, in just outside Washington, D.C., a 2-year-old girl had been enjoying socialising with her family, and everybody was in the main room. She decided to go off and play. She went into the kitchen, crawled through the dog slat at the bottom of the door, and of course outside were half a dozen pit bulls that savaged her to death in under a minute. So it's a strange coincidence of events in that particular time. So very dreadful. But interestingly, I've subsequently been in touch with Wigan Borough Council, where this incident took place. And I asked them, I said, what have you done about this since this incident took place? And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you know, I've worked as a director of local authorities in London, and, you know, I worked for the Home Office. So I would expect when an event like this takes place, that you would perhaps do an inquiry, or you would do a public scrutiny, or you would devise action plans, or you would gather information and you would do something. They haven't done a thing. Not a single thing. They haven't done any of that, which I find extraordinary. And then, of course, this is the other situation we have at the moment in the UK. We have a range of police responses. Now, some of these might be familiar to you, certainly perhaps to you, Colin. But here on the left-hand side, we have a riot shield. This is a riot shield that's regularly used for dealing with dangerous and aggressive dogs. And it has electronic membrane that's put through it. You can just see it. And it has a charge box at the bottom. So you'd thread your arm through, and if the dog attacks you, you would throw the switch, and 50,000 volts shoots through this thing. And that's enough to knock anybody right off it. I'm told, I haven't seen one in action, but I'm told that the whole membrane kind of fizzes. Even the dog's getting upset at this. I'm told it fizzes a kind of purple colour and gives off a kind of hissing sound, which generally, I'm told, puts the dog back. But sometimes it doesn't. And when officers are raiding a house, let's say for a drugs den, quite often the dog will launch at the police from the top of the stairs, and they will have to have the shield like that. So it does and can get used. The dog doesn't suffer any permanent injury, again, so I'm told. And it's only, I guess, affected for the duration that the switch or the electronic charge is on. And then, of course, you've got these kind of anti-pit bull suits, which have been brought over from America. They're extraordinary, aren't they? Never seen anything like it. Do you have any for sale at the back? Not yet, but maybe next year. But, you know, again, extraordinary. Yeah, exactly. And then here we have tasers, and then here we have, you know, Armalite guns and weapons. And, you know, both of these are used now to address these dog issues in London. And then here is a still clip from a video that you can see on YouTube. And it's 5 police officers in East London who were hospitalised because they were attacked by a kind of out-of-control staffy dog. And you know, this one here has been bitten and he's trying to escape. This one here has it hanging off his arm. And in the video, as it plays, he swings this thing from its arm. I mean, it's extraordinary. And all 5 officers were put in hospital. So, you know, that's something to think about when 5 officers can be taken off their patrol and hospitalised. And again, in terms of where we are in the UK now in 2013, this is a very strange set of pictures, isn't it? Very strange. So, and this is the kind of thing we're talking about. This is the Bench Hill Estate in Manchester. I don't know if anybody knows it. Anybody know it? Oh, you do know it. Oh, you got to. Okay. Well, very good. You don't know any of these guys, then? I hope not. But this is the kind of image that we're talking about. Now, this estate became famous because I don't know if you recall. 3 or 4 years ago, David Cameron did his hug a hoodie thing, and he went. He went to a council estate and he went to this one, and it was famous because he chatted to this guy with a hooded top, and then as he turned away, the guy went like that to him. I don't know, do you remember? It was all over the national press. Well, the camera swung round, and this is what was there at the other side of, in the other direction. And I could show you images from America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Cuba, Finland, Denmark, Netherlands, France. That it's exactly the same as this. And you'll see this kind of image now. Young men with these kind of dogs or similar aggressive bull breed dogs, mastiff dogs. And it's kind of international. It's international.